Hi, my name is Yanis, and on behalf of the training team here at LanguageCert, I would like to welcome you to this short training session for prospective LanguageCert interlocutors. The main objective of this recorded session is to familiarize you with the LanguageCert speaking exams so that by the end of the training program, you are in a position to confidently prepare for, deliver, manage and record the interview between you and the candidate. You may want to have a hard copy of a LanguageCert practice paper at your disposal so that you consult it during the session. This session consists of 5 modules. Although these can be viewed individually, we strongly advise that during the first viewing, you watch the entire session in the correct order. You may play and pause this video, resume watching, and even repeat certain parts of it as needed. LanguageCert is a member of the PeopleCert group of companies. PeopleCert was founded in 2009 and today is an international provider of exams and qualifications. PeopleCert certifies, among others, professional skills and partners with multinational organizations and government bodies to develop and deliver market-leading exams worldwide. It also deploys state-of-the-art, innovative and flexible exam administration technologies and systems. To date, it has delivered more than 5 million exams in over 10,000 locations worldwide, across 180 countries and in 25 languages. LanguageCert is an awarding organization dedicated to language skills assessment and certification. The LanguageCert International ESOL exams were originally based on the City and Guilds International English qualifications, which were acquired by PeopleCert in 2015. The qualifications and all associated development processes were revised to reflect current practices in the field of educational assessment. Since 2017, LanguageCert is an Ofqual regulated awarding organization. LanguageCert qualifications are officially on the list of certifications regulated or recognized by the designated official authorities in numerous countries, some of which can be viewed here. LanguageCert is currently a member of the most important professional associations and organizations of the ELT industry and actively attends and delivers talks in exhibitions, conferences, and international events worldwide. Here at LanguageCert, we take pride in our dream team of experts. Mike Milanovic is the chairman of the board of directors and a member of the advisory council. Roger Johnson currently serves as Chair of the Advisory Council. Nigel Pike is LanguageCert Qualification Development Manager. The team of trainers follows suit. I am Yannis Papargiris. I received my PhD from the University of Birmingham in the UK, went on to work in English medium education for over 15 years, and was recently awarded Chartered Educational Assessor status by the Chartered Institute of Educational Assessors. I am working for LanguageCert as Language Assessment Development Manager.
Hi, I'm Lida Lampropoulou, and I've been involved in English language education for over a decade. I hold a degree in English and Philosophy from the University of London, and I have varied experience in the field of ELT, having worked as a teacher, oral examiner, marker, and item writer. In LanguageCert, I make sure that our team of interlocutors conduct our exams consistently around the world in a valid and reliable manner.
Hello, I'm Janet Golding, and I'm the Academic Support Consultant for English-speaking world territories.
Hello from me too. I'm Paul Buniol, your LanguageCert Academic Consultant, which means that my job is to support you, to guide you as much as possible throughout the year.
The aim of the LanguageCert International ESOL qualifications is to demonstrate a candidate's ability to communicate using the English language across the several levels. The main objective of the speaking exam, therefore, is to enable the candidate to produce language, but not just any language which is diverse in function and appropriate in content, and we want this to happen in a friendly and non-threatening environment and in a fair, transparent manner, so that our exam has a positive impact on the candidate's learning experience. What we're trying to achieve is for the LanguageCert exam to have a positive washback, and even though it is standardized assessment, we aim for it to be an integral part of the learning process. The LanguageCert International ESOL speaking qualifications offer a comprehensive test of spoken English, which can either be a standalone examination or a complement to the International ESOL reading, writing, and listening examinations. This means that the candidates may decide to sit the two papers separately if they wish to, depending on the skills focused on during preparation and the type of qualification required. An underlying principle of the exam is that the candidate must be given the opportunity to speak to their best ability, and that we're not trying to trick them, trap them, or catch them off guard. The conditions under which the exam session is conducted should be appropriate in that way, and that falls under the interlocutor's responsibilities. Having said that, it also needs to be mentioned that the interlocutors don't interfere in the candidate's evaluation, as they don't examine or assess the candidate's performances. These are marked externally, at a later stage, by a closed group of marking examiners regularly standardized through training to ensure consistency and objectivity of assessment. To make this possible, as well as for quality and assurance reasons, the interlocutor records all interviews. The qualification is available at 6 levels, from beginner to highly advanced. Each level has been mapped to the Common European Framework of Reference, with preliminary corresponding to A1, access to A2, achiever to B1, communicator to B2, and expert and mastery to C1 and C2 respectively. You can see that the duration of the exam increases as we go up the CEFR scale, ranging from 6 to 17 minutes. However, the structure remains essentially the same. So, in part 1, the candidate is asked about personal information and ideas. In part 2, the interlocutor and candidate role-play different situations. In Part 3, interlocutor and candidate exchange information to perform a task based on visual information. And finally, Part 4, the candidate produces a monologue based on a topic selected by the interlocutor. So the basic structure remains the same, and this ensures consistency and at the same time the candidate's familiarity with the exam format, requiring minimal teaching time dedicated merely to teaching to the test and helping us achieve what we have described as our main aim, for our exams being an integral part of the learning process. The focus in its respective part is the same across levels, but there are of course specific differences as we go up the CEFRA scale. The length of the exam increases from 6 minutes at A1 to 17 minutes at C2, as we've just mentioned. The nature of some tasks differs, however. For example, the prompt in Part 3 at A1 and A2 levels contains purely visual information, and the interlocutor and the candidate look at and compare two similar pictures. Whereas at C1 and C2, the visual information is minimal, and the interlocutor and the candidate need to discuss and reason. Inevitably, the questions become more complex linguistically, and the range of topics discussed, as well as the functions expected by the candidate, become wider. Now, a more detailed breakdown at each level. The length of the exam differs between its part and its level. So you see, the focus in Part 1 at A1 and at C2 might be the same in terms of aim, so we ask questions about their preferences or their opinions, but at A1 level, this part only lasts for 1.5 minutes, as we mainly expect 1 or 2 word answers. In contrast, at B2 level, we are expecting the candidate to elaborate, to reason, to offer examples, and therefore the same part should last 3 minutes. Similarly, at Part 4, you will be asking a candidate to talk on their own for 30 seconds, whereas at B2, you expect them to be able to sustain speech for about 2 minutes. So you see the focus is the same, however the expectations are higher at higher levels. Of course, all this information is clearly visible on the exam papers, and we're not expecting you to memorize the timings. We are still expecting that you keep to the prescribed timings for each part of the exam. This is to ensure that the exam is being delivered consistently around the world.
In Module 2, we'll be looking at the format of the exam. We'll be looking at each part separately, and you'll also view a sample video of a mock exam. You might want to have a practice paper available to follow through the videos. For the specific interview, Practice Paper 2, Communicator Level, was used. You may notice that there are some differences in some of the interlocutor's wording, and that's because Paper 2 has been updated since the shooting of the video. Please note that the interlocutor should always follow the script as worded in the exam paper. Now, grab your practice paper and let's see how you start the interview. For an exam to start, you need to ask the candidate to enter the room. After you quickly ask them who they are, you have them seated and record the following, where I stands for interlocutor and C stands for candidate. I'm using a random name, date and level for this example. So you, the interlocutor, start recording and say,
LanguageCert International ESOL exam. Speaking. Communicator. 10th of December 2018. Mark Rossi. Exam begins. Hello, my name's Paul Buniol. Can you spell your family name for me, please?
The candidate should spell their last name, and then you speak again.
Thank you. Where are you from?
The candidate will answer again, And then you can move on with asking the scripted questions. This part is recorded for identification purposes and is not assessed. So it's really not important if the candidate gets confused or makes a mistake. You should leave the recorder running until the end of the exam, and you only stop it after saying,
Thank you, Mark. That is the end of the exam.
Remember that timing for part 1 includes the time taken to introduce the candidate. Part 1. So, the exam has begun. And in part 1, you need to ask the candidate up to 5 questions on personal information, ideas, or views. At A1, there are 10 questions, and you choose any 5. There are, however, some questions more appropriate for younger candidates and others targeting people who work. For all other levels, A2 to C2, there are 20 questions grouped in 4s under 5 different topic headings. The interlocutor chooses a question from each topic and mentions the heading to introduce each question. You may ask from 3 to 5 questions, but remember that it's the time for each part that you should use as a guide as to how many questions you need to ask. And that's why the guideline states asking up to 5 questions. You'll now watch a video of part 1.
LanguageCert International Spoken ESOL Exam Communicators Level, December the 2nd, 2016. Nudge Andras. Exam begins. Can you spell your family name for me, please?
Well, yeah, N-A-G-Y.
Okay, thank you very much. Which country are you from?
I'm from Hungary. I live in Budapest.
Okay, thank you. Now, in part 1, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself and your ideas. The first topic is the area where you live. What is the most beautiful place you have ever been to?
Well, I live in the 13th district, which is, well, not far from the Danube River. Well, I like that place a lot because it's peaceful, it has large areas of green properties and stuff like that. Well, and as for the most beautiful place I've been to, well, as I feel passionate about traveling, I would say it was London. I visited London this September this year. That was jaw-droppingly amazing, so I loved it a lot.
Great. The next topic is photography.
Okay.
What photographs do you have that are really special for you?
Well, I'm not really into selfies in general, but I have a selfie that I love, as one of my best friends took it of me and himself and a third friend of ours. And well, yeah, that is really special, as that picture was taken on his last birthday, and he moved outside of the country, so he lives in Denmark now, and that is the last photograph we have taken together.
I see. Money management is the next topic. How important is it to save money for the future?
Well, actually I believe it depends on the person. If someone is a big spender, then he probably has to save money because he needs to buy stuff for him or herself. But for other people who don't waste money, well, it is still important, but not as important as for a big spender, I believe. So yeah, future is unpredictable right now. So yeah, we need to save money and make contacts and stuff like that, so we can get help anytime.
Thank you very much. Moving on to part 2.
Part 2. In part 2, the aim is to test how well the candidate can use functional language in a range of real-life situations. You and the candidate enact a variety of given situations, ranging from the extremely simple at preliminary to complex and demanding scenarios at mastery level. There are 2 types of situation, Type A and Type B. Type A situations require the interlocutor to start the dialogue, whereas Type B situations require the candidate to start the dialogue. You must do at least one Type A situation and one Type B situation. Before the exam, you should familiarise yourself with the paper. You need to imagine the various scenarios which may arise during the interactions and think about how you will develop the conversations. The candidate might respond positively or negatively. Make sure you have strategies for dealing with both kinds of responses. You may need to adopt a different role, becoming a doctor or a sales assistant, for example. The candidate, though, is never asked to do so. When you're initiating and responding, use language which is natural and common for the level, and keep in mind the following 3 important aspects: the function, the context, and the roles. At A1 and A2 levels, each situation should run to 2 turns each. But at B1 to C2, you need to expand the exchange, both in terms of length and complexity. At the higher levels, you must make sure you give the candidate every opportunity to expand and use a full range of functional language. At these levels, 4 exchanges will not suffice to reach the timing for the level, so you should continue for another 1 or 2 turns if it's natural to do so. If there's more time, a 3rd situation could be selected using either Type A or Type B. You'll now watch a video of part 2.
Thank you very much. Moving on to part 2. Now in part 2, we are going to role play situations.
Okay.
I want you to start or respond. Now in the first situation, we are friends and I start. Do you want to come camping with me?
Well, yeah, such a great idea. I haven't been camping for 2 years now, I believe.
Great.
And you know how passionate I am about nature and camping and all. Where would you like to go?
Well, I was hoping that you might tell me where's a good place.
Well, I believe there's a great place in Miskolc, in Hungary. So, yeah, and actually I know the owner of that place. So, maybe we could go there for free.
Brilliant. Could you give him a call?
Well, he's not in the country right now, but when he comes back, of course I will.
Super. Fantastic. The second situation is I'm your cousin.
Yeah.
And I had a birthday party last night, but you couldn't come. You start.
Hey, hello. I feel so sorry about.
We missed you.
Well, actually, I'm happy to hear that, but I feel so sorry about that. I had to go to the hospital because my leg has broken, so I really couldn't come.
That's a pretty good excuse. How did you break your leg?
Well, actually, I had to make a jump, and yeah, I have managed to break my leg. It hurts a lot.
I bet.
So I'm really sorry.
No problem at all. How long will you be in plaster?
Well, actually I can't remember, so I cannot give an answer for that question.
Well, never mind. Just get well quickly.
Okay, thank you. I'll do my best.
Moving on. Next situation. I am your work colleague and I start. Okay. It takes me so long to travel to work. How do you get to work?
Well, I go to work on foot as the office is about 500 meters from my house.
Brilliant.
So I cannot really feel your problem. But, well, if I were you, I would try to use the subway, as that's the quickest way to get there, I believe.
Okay.
If you have a station near you.
Brilliant. What's the nearest one to here? How far away is it?
Well, 200 meters, I believe.
Okay, I'll try that. Thanks a lot for your help.
Okay, you're welcome.
The final situation is that you've seen an advertisement for a job in my shop and you want more information. You start.
Hello.
Hello.
I've seen an advertisement on the street about this new car. Could you give me some details about it? Because I really need to buy a car right now, but I have limited funds.
Right.
For that.
Well, it's 10 years old and it's got its MOT, it's fully roadworthy, and it's 1 million forints.
1 million forints. So as you have said, it's 10 years old. What about its condition? So is it
I don't
really
know.
good or...
I don't know. You see, the person just came in and put it on there. But there's the other advert next to it about a job, which I can offer you, and you can pay for the car with a job.
Well, I might take that into consideration. Okay, I believe I'll contact you next week.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to part 3.
Part 3. In Part 3, the aim is to test how well the candidate can exchange information with you in order to perform a communicative task. The important aspect of Part 3 is the quality of the language of discussion and not completion of the task. The task is a little different through the levels. At lower levels, A1 and A2, you and the candidate look at different but similar pictures, and you need to ask and answer questions that find the similarities and the differences between them. At B1 level, you and the candidate try to reach an agreement after a discussion based on the same visual prompt. For example, you may be asked to discuss where to take a friend visiting you, or what kind of present to get for a teacher's birthday. At communicator level, you and the candidate have different information around the same theme, and you try to make a plan or arrangement based on the two sets of information. The tasks are designed to reflect plans and arrangements which are made in everyday life. For example, you both have different free dates in a diary and different information about films showing at local cinemas, and you have to decide when and where to go. At expert and mastery levels, you and the candidate both have the same written prompts based on a variety of topics, which may also include contemporary issues. You and the candidate need to engage in a discussion, during which the candidate needs to demonstrate an ability to expand and give examples, to justify opinions, and to challenge you if you disagree. The discussion might require you both to rank or prioritise things, to analyse, or to imagine and hypothesise. For levels B1 to C2, preparation time is allowed so that the candidate can quickly read through the prompt. Before you start the exam, you need to look at Part 3 carefully and make sure you understand what the purpose of the task is. You'll now watch a video of Part 3.
Now in Part 3, in this part of the test, we're going to have a discussion, all right? Okay. Now, the town's local authorities are planning to construct a leisure centre and have asked for our views on what it should be included in it, okay?
Okay.
Now, let's talk about what kind of leisure centre we want and make some recommendations. Now, you take 20 seconds to think about what you want to say, okay?
Okay.
Why don't you start?
Okay, hello.
Hello.
I believe it is high time to make some decisions about the leisure center.
Right.
As it is for leisure purposes, I believe a swimming pool would be a great idea.
Agreed? Perfect idea.
Okay, do you have any other ideas?
I was thinking with that, maybe have a cafe, bar next to it?
Yeah, that's not a bad idea actually. So yeah, I believe you're right.
Okay, but it's going to be a big centre, so what else should we have?
Yeah, well, if it's gonna be a big center, a group fitness studio would be a great idea, I believe. Do you share my opinion?
Are there lots of people here that want to use that?
Well, I believe, yeah, exactly. So if it's really a big center, then people might come from a larger distance too.
True.
So
It's
I
true.
believe a group fitness studio.
Okay, what about a sports hall?
Sports hall? Right? Yeah, that's what, my third idea too. So we have already agreed on that, I believe.
Brilliant. Anything else in it, do you think?
Well, yeah, maybe a badminton opportunity might be good, but I'm not really sure about that. Do you have any idea about?
Well, I like badminton personally, but I don't know if other people around
Yeah,
here are
me
really
neither. Maybe
into
we
it.
should make a poll about that
Could do.
and ask others.
All right, well, that's quite a few ideas. I think that's good.
Okay, then we have managed to make a decision, I believe.
We have. Now, moving on to part 4.
Okay.
Part 4. In Part 4, the aim is to give the candidate an opportunity to talk at greater length on a topic which the interlocutor selects from a choice of 3. Range, fluency, and the ability to organise and manage the discourse are all features which the marking examiner will be assessing here. You should choose an appropriate topic for the candidates, using any knowledge you have about them. This is their opportunity to talk at greater length, so obviously it's better if they're interested in and feel comfortable with their topic. Having said that, an able candidate should be able to perform well with any topic appropriate to the level. Candidates are given preparation time to gather their thoughts and to prepare themselves before speaking. After the candidate has spoken on their own for the required amount of time, follow-up questions, up to a maximum of 4, are asked until the end of the exam. You'll now watch a video of Part 4.
Moving on to part 4.
Okay.
In part 4, you are going to talk about something for 2 minutes.
Good.
Your topic is your memories of school.
Okay.
Now, you have 30 seconds to write some notes to help you. So your topic is your memories of school.
Okay.
Nudge Andras, please start.
Okay. Well, when it comes to talking about school in general, I believe people who are adults by now all have some kind of memories of school. Being a student, I have memories too, and I'm living the time of high school and stuff like that. So I'm attending a high school in the 13th district. So yeah, as for the memories, from elementary school I don't have that that much memories. Yeah, from the first class, I remembered when I met my best friend. We've been friends for 13 years, I believe. So yeah, that's a great memory. We have done many interesting and exciting things together. So yeah, he's really close to me. I mean, he lives next door, so yeah. As for the high school memories, I love my years in high school. Yeah, this is my last year in high school, so I might gain some experience in the field of great experiences, but yeah. As for the memories, I love many things, such as going to class trips. Sometimes we went to trips in nature and into the forest, or visit another cities in Hungary. And this September, as I have mentioned, we visited London, which was the best trip we have had. So
okay, that's fine.
yeah.
Can you tell me about a teacher that was once important to you?
Well, I have to admit that almost all the teachers are some kind of important for me, but the most important was my English teacher, who taught me English. She did a lot of work for me and my whole class.
Okay.
So yeah, she did her best for sure, and that means a lot.
Good. And how have schools changed since your parents' time?
Well, it is a hard question, I believe, because people don't really recognize change when about these things. So I'm not sure if I can give you a valuable answer for that.
That's okay. Thank you. Nagy András, that is the end of the exam.
Okay, thank you.
LanguageCert exams are mapped to the CFR. The CFR is an international standard for describing language ability and is widely used by learners, teachers, educational authorities, examination boards, publishers, and employers. As teachers, you may already have some familiarity with the different levels and some of the scales. Teachers find several benefits of the CFR classifications. However, as interlocutors, you need to have a thorough understanding of the can-do statements at the 6 stages. In Part 2 and 3 of the exam, the interlocutor needs to interact with the candidate using language that is not scripted in the interlocutor framework.
The interlocutor is responsible for conducting the speaking examinations, so naturally, his or her main role is to elicit the spoken performance of the candidate by asking questions or setting up speaking tasks using the scripted interlocutor framework. There are still other responsibilities tied to this role, which start even before the candidate has entered the room. These include some very practical issues. For example, the interlocutor helps set up the room and positions the chairs in a way that ideally the candidate sits to their left or to the right. The lighting and the temperature can also affect how well a candidate performs, and it is the interlocutor's responsibility to ensure that these conditions remain appropriate throughout the exam session. You should also make sure that an exams in progress sign has been placed outside your room to prevent any interruptions. Before you start any exam sessions, you should have checked that you have everything you need. You should check to see that there is sufficient memory and battery capacity in the recording device that has been provided to you, and that you have writing paper and pens or pencils for the candidates to take notes. The interlocutor's responsibilities are described in full in the Guide for Interlocutors. For all aspects of the examination outside the exam room, a chief invigilator will be available during the speaking exams. Among other things, the chief invigilator is responsible for providing the interlocutor with the exam material, checking the identity of each candidate prior to the exam, and receiving all exam material again after the end of the exam. On the day of the exam, the interlocutor is required to be at the test center 1 hour before the examination session begins. The chief invigilator will hand you, the interlocutor, all exam papers to be used for the exam sessions. During that hour, you must read the whole paper carefully and familiarize yourself fully with the contents, the scripted interlocutor framework, the questions, the subjects covered, the timings for each section of the examination. You should also use this time to prepare or think about any additional questions or comments that may be required, depending on the candidate's comments or replies. During the exam, you have multiple roles. You need to ensure that exam conditions remain appropriate and to act or notify the invigilator accordingly. You need to follow the interlocutor framework as closely and accurately as possible and to deliver appropriate language where required. You need to be friendly and polite to the candidates and to time the parts and the overall length of the exam accurately. You will be provided with a recording device which you should use to record all the interviews you conduct.
What you say during the exam is heavily scripted. We refer to the script interlocutors follow as the interlocutor framework. The start of the process of ensuring reliability of results is to ensure standardization of the test-taking experience. So, by scripting what you say to your candidates, we aim to achieve worldwide consistency and to allow maximum speaking time to each candidate. You are advised to practice delivering the framework in a natural way to avoid sounding like you're reading it for the first time. In Part 2 and Part 3, however, you're required to interact with the candidate using language that's not provided for you in the framework. Please use your knowledge of the Common European Framework and the Grammar Syllabus section in the Qualification Handbook to determine what language you should use at each level. There are different kinds of breaks that you'll be taking on the day of the exam. Firstly, there's a 2-minute break between each candidate. This is actually more of a pause than a break, as during that time you need to write down the recording file number next to the candidate's name, rearrange the papers, and catch your breath. There's a 15-minute break that you need to take after 8 consecutive exams if it's B1 to C2, or after 12 consecutive exams if it's A1 or A2, as these interviews are much shorter. If you're interviewing candidates at different levels within the same session, you need to use a level change break, which lasts 10 minutes, to adjust your language. Finally, if you're conducting exams all day, a 1-hour break should be used after 5 hours of conducting exams. Your personalised schedule should include breaks as well as any needed modifications.
Every time you start recording a new candidate, a new audio file is automatically created. You should not stop the recorder until the end of the exam. This way, each exam will automatically be recorded in a separate file. At the end of each speaking exam, you should listen to the recorded file in the candidate's presence app until the candidate's name is stated. That's when you say, for example, LanguageCert International ESOL exam, speaking communicator 15th of January 2019, Mark Rossi. This does not last more than 5 to 6 seconds. This way, you ensure that the exam has been recorded and that the audio quality is satisfactory. The interlocutor may be a native speaker or non-native speaker of English. They must have an excellent command of English and be able to use the language to high degrees of skill in order to elicit language at an appropriate level from the candidate. They need to be patient and polite with all candidates and provide an appropriate level of support and to keep to prescribed timing for each part of the interview. Even though in most cases everything will go according to plan, there are times when something unexpected could happen. The Guide for Interlocutors provides the answers to the most commonly asked questions, but you should treat most issues with common sense. You can refer to section 7.1 to see if you can predict what we would be expecting you to do in the following situations.
The Guide for Interlocutors is the document where you can find information and guidance on all aspects of the LanguageCert International ESOL speaking exams. It explains your administrative responsibilities on the day of the examinations, and it also provides guidance and advice on how to conduct each part of the examination at all levels. You should take the time to read the guide thoroughly and read through it again every time you're assigned to a new exam session. You should have already received a copy of the Guide for Interlocutors, and you can always find the most recently updated version online.
The next phase of the training requires you to record a mock interview of a LanguageCert ESOL exam conducted at any level. You will need to conduct the mock interview with a volunteer candidate who does not have to be an actual student. It could be anyone willing to help you, a friend, a colleague, or an actual student. You may perform the interview at any level, but we suggest you work with the level you are expected to have most exams at, and that your candidate sounds as realistic as possible. When you have decided on the level, choose and download one of the official LanguageCert practice papers. Read through the paper and then study the Guide for Interlocutors, paying special attention to the guidance and advice for the level you have chosen. Think of appropriate follow-up questions for parts 2 and 3. Rehearse. When you are ready to record, make sure you have everything you need: paper and pencil or pen for part 4, a copy of the practice paper, a recording device or your phone, and make sure that you will not be interrupted. When you have recorded the interview, listen to it to ensure that you consider it appropriate and then email it to the Qualification Development Department as described in the application process. Before becoming approved, you will also need to complete the interlocutor training activity by answering a few questions in an online form. You may do so either before or after recording your mock interview. Once we have received your recording, we will monitor it and will provide you with feedback. The aspects we will be looking at are language, framework, attitude, elicitation, timing, and quality of the audio file. These criteria are explained in the Guide for Interlocutors, where you can also find a sample of the feedback form. To ensure all tests are standardized and candidates receive the same speaking opportunities, all interlocutors are monitored regularly, and feedback is given to help them improve their interlocutor performance.
At the end of this phase of the training, you are not alone. As a prospective interlocutor, you have access to a network of support and a wealth of materials. Points of contact and links to the material can be found online on our website www.languagecert.org.
Thank you for your interest and support. You may now move to the next phase of the training. We look forward to working with you.